Welcome to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books, hosted by me, Zibby Owens. It's an award-winning podcast with over 1,900 episodes, all featuring authors of books you love and those you have yet to discover. Listen daily 5 times a week. Then go to zibbymedia.com and learn more about what the LA Times called the Zibbyverse. Zibby Media includes Zibby's Bookshop, an independent bookstore in Santa Monica, Zibby Books Publishing, Zibby Retreats, Zibby's Book Club, and more. Go check it out at zibbymedia.com and follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens. It'll take you where you need to go. Thanks for listening. Ana Huang is the author of The Striker, God of the Games, Book 1. Ana is a #1 New York Times, #1 USA Today, Sunday Times, Wall Street Journal, and #1 Amazon bestselling author. Best known for her Twisted series, she writes new adult and contemporary romance with deliciously alpha heroes, strong heroines, and plenty of steam, angst, and swoon. Her books have been translated in over 24 languages and featured in outlets such as Good Morning America, NPR, People, and Cosmopolitan. A self-professed travel enthusiast, she loves incorporating beautiful destinations into her stories and will never say no to a good chai latte. Welcome, Ana. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss your latest book, Striker, and all your other amazing work. You're like a powerhouse. Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to be here.
So I told your publicist when I was emailing, I was driving by Union Square the other night in New York City, and I was like, and there was this crowd around the corner. I was like, what could this possibly be for? I haven't seen a line like this in so long. So I went on the Barnes & Noble website, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's Ana. I can't believe it. Tell me about this very unique event that you did at Barnes & Noble.
Yeah. Oh, it was a midnight release party for The Striker last Monday. The book came out on Tuesday, and it was amazing. It was actually my first ever midnight release. And so I think there were around 800 people there. And so there were games, activities, crafts, giveaways. There were also a Q&A session. So we split it up into 3 Q&A. So we didn't have like 800 people all on like the top floor at the same time, which would have been a fire hazard. But, you know, we kind of chatted about the book, my future plans, and then when it came to midnight, we counted down to midnight and everyone got their books. And it was kind of a very surreal moment and definitely a career highlight. So
I bet. Yeah. When your crowd is a fire hazard, you know you've made it.
Put that in my bio.
Yeah, exactly. Well, your book is great. I love the way you write. I love your characters. I learned more about, my daughter plays soccer, but this is like a whole nother level, adoption, brotherhood, sisterhood, rivalry, ballet. You have like so many different things all percolating and written in such an accessible, like warm, relatable way that you feel like you're immediately like lost in the story and sort of somehow rooting for everybody all at the same time, even though that doesn't make any sense. Tell listeners a little bit more about the book, the backstory of it, why you wrote it, and all of that.
Yeah, so The Striker is actually my first sports romance. And, people always ask me, why did you choose soccer? And I was like, well, it's because soccer is really the only sport I like watching. So any other sport would not work for me. But it follows Asher Donovan. So he is kind of this star footballer, as they call it in London, who gets transferred to a new team that happens to be the same team his rival is on. And when the rivalry costs them a championship, he's forced to do like off-season training to bond. What they didn't know at the beginning was that their new trainer is actually his rival's sister. And so, of course, as the summer progresses, romance and drama ensues, and it's a lot of fun.
I love his whole, how is this woman rejecting me, right? He first, like me, it would be like, I don't even know, the biggest steel person in the world, who, I don't know. Yeah. Harry Styles, just I don't know, somebody just being like, wait, I can't pick up a girl in a bar? Like, what is going on?
I know, he was flabbergasted.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so funny. Where did this idea come from?
Yeah, so all of my books are kind of connected in the same universe. So Asher actually showed up as a side character in one of my previous books that was published in, I would say, January 2022. And he kind of just popped up on his own. Like, I hadn't planned to write him as a side character, but he showed up at one of the main characters' weddings. And I was like, oh, like a hot professional athlete, I could probably probably do something with this in the future, but I let him sit on the sidelines for a bit, percolate a bit until I was ready to kind of delve into the sports romance side of things. And then last year, I was like, I think now is the time. I think it's his time to shine. And especially with the World Cup coming around, and I have been watching, some soccer games at the time, and I was like, I think I'm just in the mood to write this book. And I did.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's as simple as that. Take me back. Like, where did you grow up? When did you start writing? How did you break into this industry? Like, what's
Yeah.
the backstory?
Oh man, I'll give you a condensed version. So I started writing actually when I was very young as a way to kind of improve my English because I grew up in an immigrant household and we didn't speak English at home. So when I went to school, I had to take English as a second language classes. And my mom, to kind of speed me along a little bit, she was like, hey, why don't you write me a short story in English every day? And I did. And it kind of kicked off my love for writing.
Wait, can we pause there for a second? If I said that to my kids, they'd be like, no. Like you were just like, okay, I'm just gonna write a short story every single day, and that just like was how it went.
Yeah, I guess I was naturally inclined to like it, I guess. In my mind, I was like, oh, she really likes my stories. And granted, I don't know if the stories I wrote back then were actually like very good. I was like 5 years old. But I wrote her a little thing and she kept them. And she also very much nurtured that side of me. Like she would take me to the
Hmm.
library every weekend. She really nurtured my love of books. But it was so funny because I think I was maybe 8 or 9. And I told her, I was like, Mom, I think I want to be an author when I grow up. And she kind of looked at me and she was like, oh, she's like, I love that as a hobby. But
Okay.
for a job, maybe something a little bit more financially stable. And I think especially because at that time, it's kind of that like, our cultural mindset. It's like you have to have like a more stable job in like the doctor, lawyer field or whatever, and
Hmm.
artistic endeavors are not as stable, right? So I kind of took that and I studied something else in college, international relations. And for a long time after I graduated college, I actually did not write or read for leisure for a very long time because life just got so busy. And then 2020 came around and I was in my house and I needed a creative outlet and I suddenly had a lot of time on my hands and I started writing again. And at that time, the publishing landscape had shifted a lot. There was a rise in indie publishing, a rise in romance. And I published my debut series in 2020 and then I published Twisted Love, which was my breakout in 2021. And it just kind of took off from there.
Oh my gosh. How fast do you write?
I write, so it's interesting because I think compared to most traditionally published authors that come out of the gate, traditionally published, I write pretty fast because I publish on average about 2 books a year.
Hmm.
For indie authors, I am actually pretty slow because they publish faster than that. Some publish every like 3 to 4 months, and I can't write like that. But I think the way my brain works is that if you give me a time frame, whether it's like 6 weeks or 6 months, I will just fill in, like I will get it's done in whatever that time frame is. So
I
yeah.
like to believe I'm the same way, and yet it's not happening that easily. Like
All
other
have
things.
our different processes.
I know. But then you end up with all this work, which is amazing. What makes a good story? Like, what do you think are the ingredients? Like, when you're even thinking about an outline or an overview or whatever before you jump into a story, like, what does it have to have? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think because I write romance and I think it is a very character focused genre.
Hmm.
And so before I start every story, I always start with the characters. I have to figure out specifically, for both leads, what is their emotional wound? Like,
Hmm.
what is keeping them from being open to love at the beginning of the story? And how do they overcome that by the end, right? Because it's about character growth. Like you can't have two people falling in love, but they remain static throughout the entire story because then it's like, okay, well, where's the journey here, right? Right? Where's the story? And so once I figure out those emotional wounds and where their personal arcs are, then I actually build the plot around that because I think the conflict and the things that push their story forward have to be things that challenge their misbeliefs at the beginning and force them to grow, right? And so I kind of shape it from the inside out. And I think, the character development is a really important one. You have to figure out why do they actually like each other? Like
Hmm.
why are these two people specifically a good match for each other? How do they make each other a better person? How do they grow? And of course, it is romance. So we need like the tension, we need the chemistry, we need the banter, and all of those things. But yeah, it's a lot of layers.
Writing romance like this, how does it affect your own relationships?
Yeah, well, I have unbelievable. I have probably unrealistic standards. I'm like, look at me, you're not gonna fly me to Paris for breakfast one morning. But no, I think it has actually been very helpful because it allows me to kind of realize the things that I value in relationships. And granted, not that I am the same as all of the heroines in my stories, right? But the way that they work through their conflicts and what is holding them back from love in the beginning, it really helped me figure out, like, okay, this is what is important to me in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that I can and cannot have in a relationship. And it also pushes me to kind of stand up for myself a little bit more, actually, because once I write that into a book, I'm like, there's no reason why I can't do this in real life. Like they're so strong. Like all of these characters are so strong, and it kind of inspires me to do the same in my own personal relationships.
It's like you're writing your own pep talk.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like my own pep talk, my own manifestation,
Yeah.
my diary entry.
So, what do you think is holding you back from love? What is your wound?
Oh man. That's what my mom would like to know. I think for me, I have always been sort of a very like independent in the things that I do. I really like the freedom to do what I want when I want. And so for me, I think it's a little bit hard because to think of, oh, when you get into a serious relationship like that, like suddenly I have to like I can't just go off the next day and be like, oh, I want to spend a weekend in London. Like I actually have another person there that I need to take into account. And it's just, and not, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's just a different way of living and kind of a different way of thinking about things that I am still sort of like processing, I would say.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we don't have to really go into all the nitty-gritty of all your backstory. I'm like totally prying anyway, so I apologize. So, what are some of the wounds and characters that you are excited to write that you haven't written yet?
Oh, I am excited so I've never written kind of a single parent romance before. And I'm excited to kind of delve into that because those stories are so interesting because there is the main couple, but then there's sort of like a third character who's so important, right? Which is like the child or the children.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that really changes the dynamic of the story. And I think it'll present kind of a new challenge for me to figure out how to weave that story together, especially because I don't have children. So I'm kind of like, it would be a whole new area for me to explore. So I'm excited about that.
Well, if you would like some research, come on over. Happy to share any anecdotes or whatever. I have 4 kids, so yeah. But those stories are really fun, and also the element of unpredictability that kids bring into every story.
They're so funny too, because sometimes kids will just tell you like they have unfiltered thoughts, and I think they're just like hilarious.
So, what are some of the things you like to do when you're not writing?
Yeah, I'm a big traveler, so I love traveling. I used to kind of do travel photography for a little bit, which I've since swapped for writing, but I would love to kind of delve back into that. And this is going to sound so nerdy,
No, it's not. No, it's
but
not.
I love crossword. I love crossword puzzles. I love puzzles of any kind, actually. And I think for me, when I need to de-stress or decompress, it's a good way for me to have like something fun that is engaging, but also it doesn't take like too much mental energy if I'm doing like a jigsaw puzzle or something like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I really love that.
It's fun. I like Scrabble a lot. Do you play Scrabble?
Oh my gosh, yes, I do love Scrabble. Word puzzles, word games, those are that's my catnip.
Oh my gosh, I should host like an author Scrabble fest, right? That
Oh
would
my
be
God.
because it would be like everybody would like be starting on such a higher level. All these wordsmiths, and we could have like a whole like competition and like a
Yes,
Scrabble off or something. I don't know. Wouldn't that be
that
fun?
would be so much fun. I love a good board game night.
Yeah, me too. I've never actually hosted one. Okay, well, this is now on my list of events, and you'll have to come and we'll have to play. And how about when you read? Like, what are some of the things that you've read lately or that you've loved or that you wish you could write or wish you had written or whatever?
It's interesting because I write romance, but when I'm writing romance, I actually have to read other genres just to kind of take my mind out of that space. I'm like a little too into it. So I have really been on a sci-fi kick recently. And I know I am so late to the game in terms of this book, but I recently read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, which I loved. It was so much fun. And I also read The Illuminae Files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. That's more of like a young adult series, lots of action, a little bit of romance. So it's right up my alley. And I've loved both of those. And currently I am reading Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. And it's been a lot of fun as well. I love octopi. And I'm like, I don't think I can ever like really eat calamari again after I read this book, but it's okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, you meet your fans all the time. I mean, 800 people just in one night in one store. I mean, that's crazy. Have you ever had an interaction with a fan that has made you cry?
Oh my gosh. I wouldn't say cry necessarily, but I have gotten emotional a few times because, you know, for me, reading was such an escape growing up, and it has gotten me through a lot of hard times. And that's one of the reasons why I love writing and putting my work out there, is hoping that it will touch at least one person the same way. And so when people come up to me at signings, or even when they send me emails and they say, your books have gotten me through like some of the toughest times of my life, or I feel seen in your books because of the cultural representation or other types of representation. And I've never seen people that, looks like me in romance books before. And that, I think, hits a very special spot inside of me, because that really is like one of the main reasons why I love writing. And so, but I try to like read those notes when I'm alone at home, so I'm not like sobbing in public.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so what is the next book coming out?
Yeah, so the next book coming out is actually King of Envy, which is coming out in March 2025. And that is actually a different series than my Striker series. So King of Envy is part of my Kings of Sin series, which are billionaire romances that are themed around the 7 deadly sins. And so it follows Vuk and Ayana. And it's a little bit of an interesting one, because in this book, she starts off being engaged to his old college roommate. And he doesn't know that that is actually an engagement of convenience. So they don't actually have feelings for each other, but he is like in love with her, right? So there is so much drama and so much like tension and pining. And I am kind of in love with them. I'm kind of in love with them. Yeah.
Amazing. And tell me all the news for the film world, the adaptation, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, I don't know what I can share at this time, but I would love to see my books on screen one day, and hopefully it will come sometime soon.
Okay.
That's all I can say.
That was quite the teaser. I liked that. That was great. Amazing. Well, Ana, thank you. I am literally in my head being like, I'm going to write to Scrabble after this. I'm going to pitch them the idea of us doing like a Scrabble off or something and get a sponsorship. Don't you think we could do a whole thing? Wouldn't it be fun?
Absolutely. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah. Okay. I'm on a mission now. Thank you for that. You never know where these ideas come from, but yeah, why not?
It's a great story. Yeah. You're like, how did you come up with the idea of this night? Well,
Well, I mean, to be honest, every good idea I have in my life and everything that has happened in my life is because of this podcast. So there you go. So thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for coming on. Congratulations on the Striker, and thank you for the fun I had reading it and all the entertainment and all of that. So congrats.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on. This was so much fun.
It's my pleasure. Okay. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. If you love it, please leave a review and follow us on social at Zibby Owens and at Zibby Readers.